Hello everyone, I'm Casper Kuma and welcome to Project 2 of my Vtuber crafting series, and today we are making a Ghostea box. The Vtuber we're basing this project around is Ophelia Midnight from VReverie. Ophelia Midnight is an English Vtuber that does gaming, singing, ASMR, and vocal study streams. And her vocal study streams kind of low-key inspired this series about making things based on other VTubers, so you should check them out. They're really cool. She breaks down the voices of VTubers, and she knows a lot about voice acting. It's very interesting. But anyway, her lore is the most important part of this project. Ophelia Midnight is a phantom and connoisseur of tea, and if you see her during your life, when you pass away, you'll be brought to her instead of any afterlife you were destined for. Upon being brought to her, she will offer you a selection of different teas, each sending you to either heaven, hell, or limbo by random determination that she has no control over and does not know the outcome of. Since tea is such an important part of her character, it only makes sense to make a tea-based project. Now you can see some of my different ideas here. Originally, I was going to try to make a small teacup, but then I realized that at the moment I lacked the skills to make that happen. Right now, I only know how to model more geometric designs. I'm still learning how to do more organic sculptures digitally, so instead of a teacup, I decided to focus on the tea-picking aspect of the ceremony she's got going on. So as you can see, my second idea was to make the box she would use to present her guests with the tea choices. Now the first design I have for the box is a bit more on the simple side, and it's fine, but it felt too much like a chest that you could just buy in the store and then paint, so I wanted to try to make something a bit more unique. And that is why it took so much longer than I thought it would to make this project. So I had this idea to make each side of the box into a shadow box. Shadow boxes are basically paper cutouts that are layered on top of each other to form a 3D picture. I thought it would give the box a little bit of a Greek relief sculpture vibe, which I felt kinda matched her outfit and also her afterlife lore. It was difficult to figure out how to make a chest out of separate layers, so this really added a lot of time onto the project. So you can see here I have Heaven, Hell, and Purgatory. These artworks are going to make up the left, front, and right side of the box. I figured it'd be cool if the box had the depiction of what's going to happen to you if you drink this tea. And then for the inside of the box, I have our little ghost mascots floating around some deadly tea. For the tea jars, I wanted to make all the containers look the same because I wanted the choice to feel a bit more ominous and vague, and I felt like not knowing what's inside the jar would really help carry that feeling. I mean, I'm not really sure how she treats it though. I mean, maybe she literally asks you if you want chamomile or iced tea, and if you picked iced tea, you get sent straight to hell, but I don't know. But for me, I wanted the tea to be in an unlabeled jar. Maybe the tea magically changes to whatever you want. And here you can see the different parts of her design I tried to incorporate into the box. I used her skull in the decals and on the top of the jars, and I also used it in the corners of all the borders. I also used her arm accessory in the borders too, and her vines are also found on the top and the back of the box. I also tried to include that gold belt thing on her dress. I thought it looked like two crescent moons surrounding a diamond, so I put that on the emblem that's on the top and the front of the box. And then I used her little Ghostea mascot as the main character in the afterlife images. Here you can see them suffering in purgatory. I'm sure they're fine. And after I finished the design, I modeled it in Fusion 360 and sent it to my printer. For printing, I'm using an FLSUN Super Racer and an Ender 3 V2. The material I'm printing in is PLA. Printing was a bit more challenging than usual because it's cold outside and my house is freezing. And cold temperatures can cause a number of different problems when 3D printing, from warping to prints not sticking to the bed, and I had quite a lot of this happening, so it actually took quite a lot of time to get all the pieces printed properly. But once that was done, it was time for assembly. Now I learned my lesson from last time about testing mechanisms before I assemble the entire project. So as you can see here, I'm checking to make sure the hinges I made work, since this is the first time I've ever tried to make a print-in-place object. Print-in-place designs are objects with moving parts that are printed without need for further assembly. So I had to make sure that all the hinges actually bend and that the screws fit. And it's not perfect, but it's pretty good for the first try, so it works for me. Next, I attach all the main base pieces together using Gorilla Epoxy glue. Now, the way I designed my box is a little weird because the edges meet at a diagonal. Most boxes usually meet at a straight edge because it's easier to assemble and it's much stronger. But I did this because I originally thought I'd have all the layers slot into place, but this ended up not working out, and then I forgot to fix my design. So this caused some overall structural integrity problems, and it made it really hard to align the pieces correctly, but we're just gonna cover it up with some glue and sanding later, so it's okay. Now the top of the box was pretty hard to figure out because the middle part is a shadow box on both sides. The top side of the middle piece has a vine shadow box while the inside has a teacup design on it. So since the middle is made almost entirely of layers, there's nothing solid for the walls of the lid to attach to. So I tried to fix this by making a little frame to go inside that will give the walls something to sit against, and it will act as a surface for the middle part layers to build off of. It's not super sturdy, but it kinda works. And here I'm just checking to make sure all the pieces fit together and that the box opens and closes properly. And once that's done, I can move on to filling and sanding. Since it's cold out and I can't open a window to ventilate the room, I'm trying out some non-toxic materials this time. I'm using Liquitex modeling paste to fill some of these large seams, and it seems to work pretty okay. It's a little bit more crumbly than Bondo, but it is a lot less toxic, and it's much easier to sand, so I can live with that. Literally. Now to hide some of the edges not lining up, I'm sanding down the parts that stick out. For this I'm using a metal file and a Dremel. For the Dremel I'm using a worn out sanding bit, and I'm being very careful to not let the Dremel rest in one area for too long so that I don't accidentally melt the plastic. And then I'm just cleaning up the filler with some sandpaper. Unlike the last project, most of the box's surfaces are going to be covered in decals, so I don't actually have to sand most of the box because you won't be able to see it. I do, however, have to sand the jar holder and the jars themselves since these parts have the least amount of decals on them. I sand them using a metal file and sandpaper ranging from 80 grit to 2000. And then I also sand the diamond handle because that also doesn't have any decals covering it. And after that, it's time for painting. First I spray the main body of the box with spray filler primer, and then it got too cold outside so I went inside to spray the rest of the box using an airbrush. The airbrush I'm using is a basic siphon-fed airbrush with a Master Airbrush Cool Runner 2 compressor. I'm using Vallejo black airbrush primer for most of the pieces since the background color of all the shadow boxes is black. And then I'm using gray primer for all the pieces I want to paint purple. This is because light primer colors are a better base for bright colors. After I paint the pieces purple, I mask off anything I want to stay purple with liquid masking tape and regular masking tape, and then I spray the pieces with black primer. I also tried to use a piece of paper to cover the area of one of the emblems, but some paint snuck underneath it, so to try to fix that, I tried to wipe away some of the black paint, and then I just brushed some of the purple paint over top of it. And with all the parts painted, I move on to printing all the decals. For this I'm using matte sticker paper and a Cricut machine. Applying the stickers to the box was one of the hardest parts because there's so many little pieces and the paper is pretty fragile, so it keeps ripping a little bit. Essentially, all I'm doing is splitting the artwork into foreground, midground, and background. Any stickers that are part of the background get placed first, and they are attached to the base layer of the box. Then I glue down the second layer of the 3D print, and this is where any midground elements go. And finally, I add the 3D printed border on top of all that, and the border acts as the foreground. The border sticker helps hide all of the seams of the other layers. In the future, I am probably going to have to come back and reapply all the stickers with glue, because unfortunately I noticed after I finished making the box that these stickers aren't exactly super sticky, and they seem to peel really easily. But it's fine, glue definitely makes them stick down as a more permanent solution, but it's just something for me to remember for the future. But I really like how these little shadow boxes came out. I feel like it gives the box a lot of personality, and the little ghost pieces are super cute. I just want to make a whole board game out of them or something. After the outside of the box is done, I apply some stickers to the jar holder and the jars. I also add a little bit of ribbon to the inside of the box because I want the box to stay halfway open. This is because I want the top artwork to be overlooking the jars when the box is open. And somewhere along the line, I add little magnets to the top and bottom of the box, which helps keep the box shut. But I don't know what happened to the footage of me doing this, but I figured I might as well tell you what those are. For the jars, I decided they need a little extra something since the design for them was so simple compared to the rest of the box, and I didn't want them to get overpowered. So I decided to print their decals on shiny gold foil vinyl. I thought that this would look pretty cool, and it would also make the jar stick out more since the rest of the box has a matte finish. And finally, I just assembled the final art piece that sits inside of the upper lid. I feel like it's much easier to see how the layers come together on this one, and it looks a lot more like a sticker sandwich. And with that, the Ghostea box is finally done. So I hope you liked the video, and sorry it took so long to make. I ran into a lot more technical difficulties than I was expecting to when making this, so I think in the future, instead of like a hard deadline, I think these projects are just gonna have to be done when they're done. It's too hard for me to predict how long it'll take me to do something that I've never done before, so don't worry and just know that I'm always working on something. But I did learn quite a lot from this. I got to make a print-in-place object for the first time, and I also learned how to use my airbrush machine, and I got some non-toxic materials now so I don't grow a third eye. So I'm happy with our results, and I like the final result of the box itself. I think it looks super cool, and I'm happy with it. So thank you for watching my video, and I hope you liked it, and don't forget to check out Ophelia Midnight's channel. And with that, I will see you in the next video. This is Casper Kuma, over and out!